My husband and I lived to a ripe old age, devoted to each other. Yet, on his deathbed, he admonished me before our children and grandchildren. If there is a next life, I will marry Lady Isolde. You, an orphan of low birth, are the stain of my entire life. My origins were humble, yet I was my husband's true love. In his youth, he defied his family's pressure to marry me, an orphan. I thought our story would be one for the ages, but 40 years of toil earned me nothing but a joke. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 40 years in the past. It was the day I had fled famine to the capital and first met Samuel. I was in rags, standing before a madam as she sized me up, ready to sell myself into a brothel. Once inside, I could have a full meal for someone starving to death. That was more important than anything. Chastity and honor were luxuries only high-born ladies had the strength to consider. But just as I was about to be sold, I met Samuel. His friend remarked, "How can any filthy beggar get in here? It's fouling the very air." And with that, the madam drove me out. It was Samuel who apologized on his friend's behalf and gave me a handful of silver, allowing me to survive that winter. Afterward, I repaid him 100-fold and revered him as my benefactor. He knew my past better than anyone, yet, as he lay dying, he chose to humiliate me in front of our children and grandchildren. And because of his words, they disregarded the years of love and care I had given them. They drowned me in a pig cage, threw my body onto a mass grave. Then, with gongs and drums, they arranged a spirit marriage for Samuel and Lady Isolde. In a few moments, I would meet Samuel for the first time again. I didn't want to walk the same path. I turned to leave. But this time, the madam, instead of eagerly shooing me away, ordered her men to seize me. "This scrawny girl is definitely a diamond in the rough. We can't let her go. Train her well if she won't learn. We'll put her to work quickly. Either way, I won't lose out." I desperately tried to escape, with the brothel's thugs chasing me. After taking a few blows from their clubs, I found the butcher shop from my memory and ducked inside to hide. The butcher was still chopping meat. I told him they were trying to force me into prostitution without paying me. His chopping quickened. He was a large, dark-skinned man who looked fierce at first glance. When angry, he looked even more menacing. The thugs didn't even dare to approach him, instead searching elsewhere for me. Once they were gone, I emerged and thanked him, adding that I could help him make money. He slammed his cleaver into the chopping block and loomed over me. "Are you kidding me? What little spitfire are you?" I wasn't intimidated and passionately pitched my skills. Only when I mentioned that my entire family had died, leaving me alone, did his expression soften. "If you really have what it takes, I'll give you a place to eat." From then on, I made a life for myself at the butcher shop. Just as they had scorned me in my past life, I had returned to where I supposedly belonged. Under my business acumen, the butcher shop's sales flourished. Kale, the butcher, grew warmer towards me, always asking, "Lass, want another bite to eat?" Under his care, I gained a healthy amount of weight. I looked healthier and had better color than I ever did at my plumpest in Samuel's manor. To have caught Samuel's eye, my looks were naturally not poor. Coupled with my diligent work at the shop, my industriousness was a clear advantage. Once I shed my skeletal appearance, matchmakers soon came knocking. Refusing them was useless. This time, they brought a potential suitor directly to me. I grabbed Kale and smiled demurely. I traveled 1,000 miles to reunite with my fiancé. He's just shy before we're married. He tells everyone I'm his sister, which is why you were all mistaken. Kale tensed up, looking completely uncomfortable. I whispered, "Help me out. We still have a business to build, bigger and stronger." He dropped his pretense and even took my hand in his. The sound of something falling echoed from the alley behind us. I looked back and saw only a fleeting figure hurrying away. Another suitor, perhaps, who had been scared off. The next day, news of Samuel's betrothal to Lady Isolde reached me. I was balancing the shop's books and merely muttered, "Took him long enough." I had thought Samuel would be eager to marry her, given how he obsessed over her on his deathbed in our past life. Even our children and grandchildren, moved by his deep affection, had them wed in the afterlife. A 10-mile procession of red silk, an 8-bearer sedan chair. Everyone praised Samuel's true love for Lady Isolde, saying he had given her the highest honor. I remembered my own desolate wedding in my past life. As Kael awkwardly agreed with the onlookers' praise, I whispered to him, "Don't believe that nonsense. The 10-mile procession is paid for by the bride's family. It's her own dowry. What does that have to do with Samuel?" The man was truly skilled at taking credit for himself. Kael was stunned. Are there really people that shameless? After that, whenever he heard people praising Samuel, he couldn't bring himself to agree. He pulled me into the back room and asked quietly, "Do you know that groom? You don't seem to like him. How could I possibly know such a great man?" Kael pressed on. "It's fine if you do. If you say you have a grudge against him, I'll stop mentioning him in front of you." His sincerity was plain, but I couldn't tell him the truth. I was just in a sorry state when I entered the city, and he looked down on me. His face darkened, and he cursed. Then he's really a piece of trash. Busyness was busy, and we rarely had time for private chats. He brought up the matter from the other day. It was hard to see a blush on his dark face, but his fidgeting revealed his unease. "Lass, you told everyone that. What will you do when you find someone you really like? Liking someone doesn't put food on the table. The things I told you when we first met, I meant them. We weren't exactly in love, it was more like a partnership for survival." Kael hadn't agreed to my proposal, but he no longer resisted me using him as a shield. Until the day Samuel came for me. He was supposed to be a newlywed, but his eyes were dark and bruised. He had his servants drag me from the butcher shop, and his first question was, "Why weren't you at the brothel?" That one sentence told me he was also reborn, and it filled me with a rage that made me want to kill him. I brushed the dust from my clothes, stood up, and answered him with dignity. "I am a common woman, but I was fortunate enough to be rescued by my husband, which spared me that fate." Samuel became agitated. "Husband? You mean that dark, ugly pig butcher?" Kael wasn't ugly. He had strong brows and sharp eyes, just a bit dark and built. His name, Kael, hinted at his foreign blood, which wasn't favored in the capital. "Sir, please watch your words. What my husband is to me is none of your concern." "You dare say it has nothing to do with me?" Kael rushed over, knocking down Samuel's servants and pulling me behind him. "I'm the head of this household. If you have business, you can deal with me. Why are you targeting a defenseless woman?" Samuel's gaze fell on our clasped hands. He laughed, a cold, harsh sound, and beckoned to me as if calling a dog. "If you come to me now, I can overlook all of this." I didn't understand why Samuel was seeking me out. He was already married to Lady Isolde, fulfilling his past life's regret. Why torment me again? Even if he wanted to offer me the position of a concubine, he should have done it when I first arrived in the capital. 2 months had passed. It was far too late. Kael pointed his cleaver at him and roared, "Who the hell do you think you are? Does a little stinking money make you a big shot?" As a butcher, his greatest skill was slaughtering pigs, and he had brought his blood-stained cleaver with him. He looked ferocious, ready for a fight to the death, but Samuel was unfazed. "I am the heir to the Marquis of Dingyuan. If you give her to me, I will forgive your disrespect." The Chu family did hold a title, but in our past life, Samuel was not the heir. I didn't know if he was lying or if he had managed to seize the position after his rebirth. Kael squeezed my hand tightly and yelled in his cracking voice, "Does being a marquise's heir give you the right to steal another man's wife?" The brothel district was right next door, bustling with nobles and officials. Some were far more powerful than the Marquis of Dingyuan. Noticing a crowd gathering, Samuel's arrogance quickly faded. He spat a threat. "She has the face of a femme fatale with you. She will only bring you endless trouble. You might as well send her to my estate. I am a kind man. I can at least grant her a chance to live." He left his fallen servants behind and departed amidst Kael's curses. Kael anxiously looked me over, rolling up my sleeve to reveal the purple bruise on my wrist. I was too late. You've been wronged. I shook my head, silent. I had business sense and some knowledge of the future. I had already set our small shop on a path to prosperity. But Samuel's sudden whim had thrown everything into chaos. My mind was a mess. I didn't even notice that Kale hadn't let go of my hand. Until he said, "Let's get married." I snapped out of my thoughts, looking at him in astonishment. What he just said. We still have a business to build, bigger and stronger. He grinned at me, looking a bit simple-minded. I'd risk my life to protect you. I'm not educated or skilled, but I know a man who can't even protect his own wife is worse than an animal. My fear of Samuel's rebirth was replaced by a sense of bewildered amusement. I teased him. "Do you like me?" That dark face instantly turned crimson. His stare made me feel a bit shy, but I agreed readily. Samuel cared deeply about his reputation. He would never do something as disgraceful as openly seizing a married woman. Marriage was the best shield. And I could help Kale avoid the fatal disaster that awaited him. Besides, his humble origins, kind heart, and simple mind made him easy to manage. He wouldn't turn into another Samuel decades later, telling me I wasn't worthy. A commoner's wedding is simple. A red cloth and a single table of food suffice. But thanks to my management, the shop was doing well and Kale had some money to spare. He actually managed to organize a proper wedding for us. I prepared from a rented house, and he came to fetch me on a borrowed horse. The man who usually wore coarse linen was transformed in his wedding robes, looking strikingly handsome after being properly groomed. I mentally refuted Samuel's assessment of him again. Kale was very good. Looking, Samuel must be blind. But the moment he smiled, his refined air vanished. He grinned, showing all his teeth, and said, "Lass, don't I look handsome today?" I played along. Handsome, the most handsome young man in 10 miles. He beamed even more foolishly, afraid I would burst out laughing. I quickly lowered my veil. A fine horse led the way, followed by a single red bridal sedan. Kale was beaming with joy, but as fate would have it, we ran straight into Samuel, who was out for a ride. He blocked our path, forcing the sedan to a halt. Well, what a festive little occasion. I recognized his sarcastic, sneering tone. It was Samuel. Why was he here? Fortunately, he was with companions, and seemed to be on a leisurely outing. After delaying us long enough to miss the auspicious hour, he ambled away. I cursed his luck under my breath, a little wistfully. This wedding was actually grander than my first one. Back then, Samuel had practically disowned his family, threatening suicide just to marry me. All I got was a small sedan and a half, open side gate. There were no guests, no ceremonies, no gifts. This time, Kale had personally gone into the mountains and hunted 2 wild geese for me. They were delicious when stewed. It was Kale who made me realize that the gap between 2 people can be wider than that between a person and a dog. Missing the auspicious hour left me with a sense of unease. But Samuel had left the city, so I thought he wouldn't cause any more trouble. Kale and I proceeded with the ceremony, keeping everything simple to avoid further disruption. But the more you fear something, the more likely it is to happen. Just as the old tofu seller next door announced, the couple may now bow to each other. A group of armed men stormed in. The leader was a woman with a sharp, heroic face. With a flick of her sword, she sent my red veil flying. I had dressed carefully for my wedding day and looked more radiant than usual. Manny in the crowd gasped, and Kyle instinctively moved to shield me, demanding, "What are you doing?" The woman raised an eyebrow. She was smiling, but her disdain for me was palpable. "I just came to see which little hussy has seduced my husband and driven him to distraction. He broke his promise to me, insisting on taking you as a concubine." Her words were laced with bitterness, as if she hated me to the core. From this, I guessed her identity, Lady Isolde. The new bride of the Chu family, I moved past Kale, picked up the veil from the floor, and dusted it off. "I do not know your esteemed husband," Besides, if such a thing were true, wouldn't my marriage be the better outcome? Why must you ruin my wedding? But Lady Isolde said, that won't do. I owe him a life, since I have agreed. I must see it through. How can I let you marry another? Their debt of gratitude was to be paid with my life. What kind of logic was that? She waved her hand, and her men surrounded me, ready to seize me by force. On his wedding day, Kale once again brandished his butcher's cleaver. I placed my hand on his and shook my head. Don't. If you do, we'll be the ones in the wrong. She was a lady of noble rank while we were commoners. If we so much as harmed a hair on her head, the blame for this entire affair would fall on us. The neighbors who had come for the feast had already scattered. The people I had sent for were among them. Kale gripped my hand, his eyes filled with worry. I pried his fingers away and stepped forward, whispering, trust me. Whatever happens, do not come forward. I stood before Lady Isolde, letting her scrutinize me with disgust. A concubine should not wear the bright red of a primary wife. Men strip her of that wedding dress. She intended to humiliate me, sending 2 male servants forward. They pinned me to the ground and began tearing at my clothes. My shoulder was exposed. A flash of white skin, Kyle, cleaver in hand, charged forward. His ferocious demeanor scared off the servants holding me down. I knew he only wanted to save me, but I couldn't help but pinch his side. Didn't I tell you not to come forward no matter what? His voice was muffled and heavy. You are my wife. I have to protect you. I don't understand all those complicated rules, but I won't live by selling out my own woman. Lass, I can't stand this humiliation. But even if we fought, it would only end with a drop of our blood on her pearl-studded shoes. Under Lady Isolde's menacing gaze, the servants advanced again. I pushed Kale away and threatened them. She wants me in her manner as a concubine, to serve her husband. That means I will be your master's woman. If he learns that you touched me today, I wonder if he'll have any place for you. Lady Isolde had just boasted about how much Samuel wanted me. Reminded of this, they hesitated, their fear overriding their orders. Lady Isolde kicked them both. Terrified by this country bumpkin. Get out of my sight, I'll do it myself. She was trained in martial arts while I was weakened from my time as a refugee. Pinned down, I was powerless to resist her. I've only heard of men crashing weddings, never of the wife doing it for him. Your ladyship's actions make one wonder just who this concubine is for. My words choked her. She grabbed my sash but then flung it away in disgust. The wedding robe hung loosely on my shoulders. If I were a lady from a noble house, I would be expected to take my own life in shame to preserve my honor. Luckily, I was not. I would do anything to survive. Meanwhile, Kale had circled behind Lady Isolde, raising his cleaver. In the next moment, a whistling sound cut through the air as a whip struck Lady Isolde's arm. A sharp reprimand followed. How dare you, causing such a scene in the Emperor's city? Before Lady Isolde could cry out in pain, she saw a familiar face. She gasped and dropped to her knees. Your Highness, Princess Seraphina. This servant was merely disciplining an unruly concubine. I did not mean to disturb you. Princess Seraphina, the senior princess, raised a brow, her expression disdainful. I was not aware that one of my people had become a concubine in your household. She dismounted, removed her cloak, and draped it over me. I had calculated that Samuel wouldn't do anything more today, but entrusting my safety to another's character was a fool's game. I had died so tragically in my past life precisely because I trusted Samuel too much, just as he had saved Lady Isolde and secured their marriage. I too would seize my opportunity to align with a powerful patron. With a few words, the princess dismissed Lady Isolde. Then she pulled a hairpin from her own hair and tucked it into my messy bun. A wedding gift for you. I clutched the cloak, embarrassed, as the princess chided me for not inviting her to my wedding feast. Beneath the cloak, my clothes were in disarray, and I couldn't fix my appearance. But Kale seemed to have a sudden revelation. He took the hairpin, smoothed my tangled hair, and expertly styled it into a neat bun. The princess's gaze softened. He's not entirely useless. I smiled shyly and introduced Kale to her. Although Lady Isolde had left, the other guests had long since fled. The tables were laden with food, but the scene was one of desolation. The person I had sent to fetch the princess arrived with her guards. They took their seats, becoming the sole guests at our wedding feast, and witnessed us complete our marriage. Only after we were escorted to the bridal chamber did the princess leave with a smile. Once she was gone, Kale held me tightly. "It's my fault, I'm too weak. That's why you had to suffer so much." Kale was a strange man. He didn't blame me for the trouble, but blamed himself. But if he weren't that kind of person, I never would have chosen him. I patted his back and said cheerfully, "Don't worry, husband. See, I'm not hurt at all." Kale held me closer. He didn't ask why the princess helped me or question my background. He just held me and promised, "I will protect you. I will be able to protect you." Will and can are two different things. I never expected his protection, but his sincerity moved me. "So what's your plan? They are royalty. Crushing us would be as easy as crushing an ant." That day, Kale gripped his cleaver and said, "Our kings and nobles born to their station, the surname Helan, which sounded so elegant, actually meant horse in a foreign tongue. Helanye, Kale, a wild horse." That day, for the first time, I glimpsed his ambition, and a sense of clarity washed over me. Who is born royalty? Why must someone always stand above me, humiliating me, demeaning me, draining my value only to cast me aside with contempt? If someone has to be at the top, why can't it be me? My ambition grew wildly, but reality remained harsh. After Lady Isolde's disruption, the neighbors who had come to the feast now avoided us like the plague. No one dared to show their face. The butcher shop's business plummeted. Even selling it meant accepting a ridiculously low price. The common folk do not fight with officials. A lesson made painfully clear to me. I removed my hairpins and said to Kale, "If you trust me, give me 3 days. I will solve this." I came back to save him, not to drag him into the mire with me. Even though Samuel and Isolde's actions were unexpected, I could still protect him. But Kale's face fell. "Worst case, we just move somewhere else. Don't wrong yourself over something so small." I chuckled and patted his chest. "What are you thinking? If I truly wanted to be with him, none of this would have happened." He took my hand and placed it inside his shirt, through his tense pectoral muscles. I could feel his heart hammering against his ribs. The red candles were still burning, casting a crimson glow on my cheeks. That's what I should be saying. "Trust me, I can solve this, and I can protect you." The silken curtains were drawn. A spring night is worth 1,000 gold pieces. I pressed my knee against him, leaning half my body over his. I teased him with a smile. "Husband, shouldn't we consummate our marriage?" My mind had been in turmoil that day, with no room for such thoughts. He was easily flustered, yet more courteous than those self-proclaimed scholars. Even though we were married, he had treated it as an act and hadn't dared to touch me. Fortunately, I was experienced. I took the lead, and it was far more satisfying than the decades of my past life. Afterward, I nestled in his arms, tracing patterns on his abdomen with my fingertips. Kale's breathing was heavy, tinged with a restless edge. His usually gruff voice now sounded almost aggrieved. "If you're going to rest, then rest. Can you stop touching me?" I looked at him with feigned innocence. "If you feel you're getting the short end of the stick, you can touch me back." When he didn't respond, I continued my teasing. Finally, a hand clamped around my waist. He could no longer hold back. He demonstrated everything I had just taught him, returning the favor in full. In the end, I was exhausted, while he was refreshed and vigorous. I had planned to feign unconsciousness, but ended up genuinely passing out. Fortunately, I was healthier than in my past life and had deliberately shown weakness. So I woke up earlier than he expected. He rose in the night and left. I left a note and departed as well. Kale was originally illiterate, but he was a quick study. After only a month of my teaching, He could understand a simple note. A shame that in our past life, 3 days later, at the maple viewing banquet, I was an advisor to the princess. He was a personal guard to Prince Valerius. We stared at each other in the princess's residence, our faces etched with confusion. Kyle was a head taller than everyone else, and his dark skin made him stand out. The princess spotted him immediately and asked me what was going on. I have no idea. Who could have guessed? In this world, it was hard enough for the poor to find a master to serve, let alone a good one. Who would have thought that when Kyle said he could solve my problem, he would turn around and become a guard for the superior of Samuel's family? Now, even if Samuel wanted to take me, his own father would never approve. He'd probably get a few slaps and be told to go play somewhere else. The princess quickly understood the situation and smiled wryly. "You have good taste." But the next moment her smile vanished, and she said pointedly, "One can only hope it stays this way, and that love doesn't turn to heartbreak later on." She was only 32, yet the corners of her eyes were etched with time. I didn't want to touch upon her painful past, so I remained silent. But someone deaf decided to curry favor with the princess. Unfortunately, they were terrible at it, saying all the wrong things. "The scenery at your residence is truly the best. Your Highness, even the maple leaves are redder here, and you remain as radiant as ever." She nudged the man beside her, a boy of about 16 or 17. He had rosy lips and fair skin, and he smiled innocently at the princess. He bore a slight resemblance to her late husband, the prince consort. The princess was not pleased. Instead, she said, "They were stained red with the prince consort's blood. Naturally, they are redder than elsewhere." Most people only knew that the princess and her husband were deeply in love, and that after his death, she seemed to age 10 years and closed her heart to love forever. But I knew the truth. He had died at her hands, a gruesome death. This person was truly rubbing salt in the wound. The princess maintained her elegant smile, but it terrified them to their core. Finding them dull, she had them dragged away and given 30 lashes each. The guests scattered like frightened birds, and the atmosphere plunged into an icy silence. Even Prince Valerius had to placate his elder sister, coaxing her gently. It was during this chaos that Kale found me. "You're with the princess now?" I mimicked him. "You're with Prince Valerius now," he said in a low voice. I asked around. Prince Valerius seems to be the one the Chu family fears most, so I stopped his carriage and offered my services. He saw I was strong, and though I have no formal training, I have natural strength. He kept me by his side and even hired a master for me. He sounded a bit more articulate, probably from being around the prince and hearing people flatter him all day. His vocabulary had clearly improved, but I knew how these people thought. They wouldn't see him any differently because of it. If there was anything Prince Valerius valued in him, it was likely his straightforward, loyal nature. In other words, he was easy to fool. Prince Valerius is not a good man. Be careful around him. If you get a chance, you can leave his service. I can support you. I could say the same about the princess. Everyone is saying she killed her own husband. You're the one who needs to be careful, he retorted, no longer listening to me and trusting my every word as he used to. It left a sour taste in my mouth. We were newlyweds, separated after just a taste of marriage. While I was feeling sentimental, he slyly wrapped an arm around my waist. "We haven't seen each other in days, and this is all you have to say. You left that note and disappeared. I was worried sick looking for you." As he spoke, he leaned down and kissed my neck. A tickling sensation spread, and I pushed him away. "We're in public. Behave yourself." I checked. "There's no one around." He kissed me again. I debated whether to tell him that princes and princesses have shadow guards, secretly watching for any potential threats. I was one, and so was he. I had no idea how many people were watching us from the shadows. I didn't tell Kale the embarrassing truth, but as soon as he returned to his post, Prince Valerius teased him. "You're quite the romantic, daring to misbehave in the princess's residence." If my royal sister took a disliking to you and wanted your life, even I couldn't save you. Kale's neck flushed red and his eyes widened. Your Highness, how did you know? Oops, he found out about the shadow guards after all. I was afraid I'd laugh, so I didn't dare look at him. Kale stammered out an explanation of our relationship, narrowly avoiding a ruined reputation. But Prince Valerius insisted on meeting me. Kyle had joined his service precisely to secure the prince's protection for me, so he readily agreed. When Prince Valerius saw my face, he paused for a moment before laughing. The two of you don't quite seem to match. Kyle is a lucky man. I pursed my lips, unable to smile. Kyle nudged me, and only then did I curtsy and thank the prince. Kyle was grinning foolishly beside me. Yes, marrying my wife is the greatest fortune of my life. You should visit more often. It wouldn't be a bad idea for your wife to move into my residence. It would be safer. He was still grinning, about to agree. I elbowed him. The princess has use for me. It is not convenient for me to move. Using the princess as a shield, Prince Valerius finally relented, but as Kale walked me back, he was a little unhappy. Prince Valerius is a prince. Living in his residence would definitely be safer than the princesses. He's also the Chu family's backer. With him on our side, we wouldn't have to fear Samuel. Why didn't you want to come with me? If we lived together, it would be even safer. Seeing my resolve, he added pitifully, I miss you too. We're newlyweds. Won't you miss me a little? The sight of a burly man tugging on my sleeve and whining was truly jarring. My mouth twitched as I reminded him about the shadow guards. He froze, awkwardly retracting his hand, having clearly forgotten about them again. Many guests were invited today. Lady Isolde and Samuel also received an invitation. They were delayed by something and arrived an hour late. As they sought to present a gift to the princess, they ran right into us, still in our little tussle. What are you doing here? Samuel was utterly shocked. It was as if he expected me to have fallen into depravity, to be trampled upon by all, waiting for him to rescue me. Seeing him still fixated on me, Lady Isolde said with displeasure, Is the princess's residence a place for you to make a scene? All this grabbing and pulling, should I have a bed brought over so you can perform for everyone? She was most bothered by Samuel's attitude towards me. Now she wanted nothing more than to brand the idea of me being soiled goods into his mind. A flicker of annoyance crossed Samuel's eyes. He questioned me. You truly gave yourself to him? Have you lost your mind debasing yourself like this? When have I ever wronged you? I looked at Lady Isolde and reminded him. Her ladyship is your wife. I, on the other hand, have no interest in your family's prestige. Please, Sir Samuel, watch your words and stop spouting nonsense. Instead of pulling away from Kale, I linked my pinky finger with his and gave it a little swing. Let's go. The maple leaves are at their reddest. I'll take you to see them. We turned to leave, but Samuel refused to let go. He strode after me, grabbing my free hand and trying to pull me into his embrace, just as he had done countless times in our past life. We were once devoted until old age. It's impossible for there to be no feelings left at all. Unfortunately, all I felt now was disgust. Kale drew his blade and pressed it against Samuel's arm. The one making a scene is you, isn't it? He said, his face filled with killing intent, as if he could strike at any moment. He growled, Let go. Startled, Samuel released me. To save face, he retorted. You're just a servant to Prince Valerius. Do you really think you're someone important? Power is the best kind of nourishment. The man who once could only dirty Samuel's shoes at the cost of his own life now seemed capable of taking it. But what good is borrowed power, a castle in the sky? He went to Prince Valerius and said he wanted Kale. Kale and I were summoned before Prince Valerius. The prince idly swung a string of colorful jade beads, making them clatter. He had his attendant repeat Samuel's request, then asked, Kale, what do you think I should do? You are both my trusted aides. This is truly a difficult position. He wore a troubled expression, but his eyes were on me. He was waiting for my answer. Kael hadn't considered such complications. He thought that by aligning with Prince Valerius, he would be safe. In truth, his actions were more decisive and fortunate than most, and he had his own abilities to back them up. But he didn't understand. In the eyes of these nobles, human life was as cheap as grass. Every one of them had a blackened heart. Kael's expression grew grim, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. He said through gritted teeth, "I came to follow your highness, not to sell myself into your service." The moment those words left his mouth, I knew this would not end well. Prince Valerius chuckled. Samuel's lips curled into a smirk. He shot Kael a cold, menacing look before his eyes landed on mine, filled with an air of absolute possession. I had had 3 days to investigate. On the day he rescued Lady Isolde, he did not propose to her. Instead, he went to the brothel where I had almost sold myself. He had all the women line up for inspection, but failed to find the person he was looking for. He was looking for me, but not on the day I was about to sell myself. In that moment, I knew. He wanted me to fall into depravity so he could then rescue me. He wanted to validate the slanders he had thrown at me on his deathbed in our past life. If I hadn't run, if I had truly sold myself into that brothel and eventually ended up in his hands, I cannot imagine what a miserable fate would have awaited me. I stepped forward. "If your highness has no more use for Kael, the princess happens to be in need of a personal guard." The prince's swinging beads stopped. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Can you speak for my royal sister?" Her highness merely mentioned it recently, and I remembered. "I don't believe I've heard you introduce yourself. I only know you as Kael's new wife." I performed a deep curtsy before speaking. "I am an advisor to the princess. I have only recently begun serving her." Until that moment, Prince Valerius didn't even know my name. "An advisor. I thought you were a newly promoted maid. You dress rather plainly." How could I not? I had no money. He bestowed the jade string upon me. "Since you are my royal sister's advisor, serve her well. This is a gift for you." The jade string, still warm from his palm, was placed on my wrist by an attendant. My expression remained unchanged as I thanked him. I added, "The princess has matters for me to attend to, so I shall take my leave." The smile on Prince Valerius's face was strained. He gave a reluctant nod. I turned and walked away. I could hear an attendant behind me criticizing my behavior. So ill-mannered. If she were one of ours, she'd have been beaten to death by now. Beyond that, I could feel the gazes of Kael and Samuel on my back, one burning hot, the other ice cold. I didn't look back, walking away one step at a time. I recounted the events to the princess exactly as they had happened. She showed no surprise, clearly already aware of the situation. She tilted my chin up, studying me closely. Suddenly, she laughed, a bright and charming sound. "You still haven't told me why Samuel is so fixated on you. This is the 3rd time you've used me as a shield. You should at least tell me this amusing story." I painted Samuel as a lecherous man and disparaged Prince Valerius to no end. The princess laughed heartily, her body shaking as she leaned on my shoulder. "Oh, you? Who else would dare speak like that?" She knew I wasn't telling the whole truth, but my story amused her, so she let it go. "In 3 days, the princess's residence will need a new guard." Just like that, she offered Kael a way out. Not only did she not fault me for my fabrications, but she helped me make them a reality. Was she a good person? I didn't know. I only knew that when people stand in high places, their hearts are often devoured by demons. 3 days later, Samuel arrived at the princess's residence before Kael. He blocked my path to deliver news of Kael's death. That stubborn fool refused to submit to Prince Valerius and was beaten to death. "I don't mind that you were with him. As long as you come back, I will make you my wife of equal standing and give you control over the household. How about it?" He mentioned Lady Isolde with a headache. "I was foolish before. I forgot how good you are." "Lady Isolde, she. He frowned in disgust. She is utterly useless. Lady Isolde, having followed him, rushed out and slapped Samuel across the face. So this is it. I wondered why you left in such a hurry. You were rushing to badmouth me to your little lover. How am I useless? It was you who begged me to marry you. Otherwise, I would still be living my carefree life. You promised to treat me well, and this is what I get. Married into your family only to be cast aside. Like old shoes, Samuel. You are an animal. They started arguing again. But I had no time for this. My mind was consumed by what he had just said. Kael, what happened to him? Had he died because of me, even after all this? Didn't I come back to save him? Why? Even with a second chance, was I doomed to repeat the past? Kael was carried to the princess's residence. He was covered in blood, barely breathing. The scene was an almost perfect reflection of our past life. I stared at him, stunned. The princess's physician was willing to help but shook his head and sighed, telling me to prepare for the worst. His words snapped me back to reality. There was no time to question whether my presence in his life was a blessing or a curse. I ran desperately towards the princess. She was waiting for me. I fell to my knees and kowtowed with all my might. I beg your highness to save my husband. This was the first time I had knelt before her, because I had done her a favor when we first met. My attitude towards her was not that of a servant to a master. But after today, everything would be different. I begged until my voice was hoarse, until my forehead was bleeding. The princess smiled and gently pulled me to my feet. She pressed a small medicine box into my hand. This is my life, saving medicine. It can bring back the dead. It will be more than enough to save your husband. When he is well, we will drink together. I kowtowed again in thanks, then ran as fast as I could. My hands trembled as I opened the box and clutched the pill. The pill mixed with my blood. It probably wouldn't taste good. I tried to put it in Kael's mouth, but he wouldn't swallow. My mind was filled with the image from my past life. Kael, beaten and dying, his body tossed onto a mass grave. Without thinking, I chewed the pill and used my tongue to push it down his throat, forcing him to swallow. You have to live. You must live. Only by living can you obtain everything. Didn't you say kings and nobles aren't born to their station? If you have such ambition, then you must live, no matter what it takes. The medicine may not have been divine, but it was exactly what he needed. Kael's life was saved. The princess had said we would drink when he was well, but as soon as he was out of immediate danger, I went to drink with her. The strong liquor burned like a knife down my throat. My stomach ached, and my thoughts grew sluggish. The princess sat beside me, refilling my cup. She took a delicate sip. I drained my cup, drinking like this. I was soon hopelessly drunk. She asked me what the real story was with Samuel. I spoke of the endless years of famine, of my family dying on the road, of how I had wanted to sell myself into a brothel, only to be saved by Kael at the last moment. I mentioned that the brothel seemed quite lively recently, and that Lady Isolde had been completely fooled by him. Every sentence avoided his name, yet every sentence pointed to him. I don't know why he is so fixated on me. Perhaps he is just a lecher. Everything came too easily to him before, so a few rejections from me only made him more obsessed. My explanation was plausible and matched what her own investigations had revealed. And what about you and Kael? Even if you were destitute and on the brink of starvation, with your abilities you never needed to rely on him. I pretended to be too drunk to comprehend wailing before her. Half-truthfully, Kael almost died for me. I have to protect him. I have to save him, both in this life and the last. Seeing me in a drunken stupor, the princess knew she would get no more out of me. Feeling she now had me under her thumb, she magnanimously had me escorted back to my room. Kael was recovering in bed. Seeing me brought back dead drunk, he was startled. He lunged forward to check my clothes, only sighing in relief when he found no wounds. The pressure of his body on mine made me forget my act. I wretched, vomiting everything I had drunk. Then I rasped, "If you don't get off, you're going to crush me." He quickly moved, but the movement pulled at his wounds, making him grimace in pain. Now it was my turn to be worried, carefully helping him back to bed. Then I found the medicine bottle and told him to take off his own clothes. The wounds were in an awkward spot. Kale's face turned beet red as he tried to grab the medicine. "Just give it to me. I can apply it myself." "You can't even see the wounds. If you apply it incorrectly, it will only hurt more." My head was still spinning. I simply pinned his hands down. "Stop struggling. I feel awful once I'm done with your medicine. I can finally rest." He stopped moving, but his entire body was as red as a boiled shrimp. A black tiger shrimp, to be precise. There was nothing romantic about the situation. His battered body only reminded me of his gruesome death in our past life. But after I bathed, Kale held me tightly. His warmth enveloped me, chasing away some of the chill in my heart. He asked if the princess had given me a hard time and apologized. Kale was not one to apologize. He used to be boisterous and carefree, never letting things bother him. The experiences of the past few days had molded him into someone else. I squeezed his hand, not wanting to argue about who was at fault. Instead, I said, "Thank you for pleading with Prince Valerius for me. But we were both wrong about one thing. Power is seized, not begged for. It cannot be obtained through submission. No one is a fool. My reliance on the princess, his on Prince Valerius, it was like drinking poison to quench a thirst. They protected us, but they expected far more in return. We wanted to use them as stepping stones, but they wanted to squeeze every last drop of value from us. Even behind their masks of benevolence, their contempt was impossible to hide. We talked for a long time that night, only falling asleep as dawn approached. But just as the sun rose, the princess summoned me. I covered the dark circles under my eyes with powder and hurried to see her. She acted as if she had never wronged me, treating me with the same warmth as before. "You've certainly created a dilemma for me. Let's hear what Prince Valerius has to say about you." She had me wait behind a screen. Soon, Prince Valerius was led in, followed by Samuel through a crack in the screen. I could see their grim faces. Kale is a tough one. Your Highness's residence has certainly produced an interesting character. She may be an advisor, but she's really just a plaything kept for amusement. I have found many others for my royal sister. Perhaps she would be willing to part with this one? He called out, and a stream of beautiful young men and women entered. There were more than 10 of them, each one a stunning beauty. The princess didn't refuse, but pointed at Samuel and asked, "Are you asking for yourself or for him?" Bringing them here meant he had a purpose. Prince Valerius admitted it openly, which seemed to surprise the princess. "That is not like you." Prince Valerius smiled but said nothing. I knew. Samuel held too much information about the future. It would be simple for him to win over, or even subdue Prince Valerius. Getting the prince to back down and even help him was an easy task. After all, wasn't that what I was doing with the princess? But I still have use for her. I am reluctant to part with her. If Sir Samuel wants her, he could always come and serve as my advisor. I am, after all, quite short-staffed. She was trying to poach his man right in front of him. Prince Valerius left in a fury. Samuel, however, looked back at her a few times, clearly tempted. After all, we both knew that in the end, the princess was the one who laughed last. And Prince Valerius was destined for the executioner's block. After they left, the princess called me out. "Oh, you truly make things difficult for me." "Difficult? Then don't do it." I was flipping tables in my mind, but on the surface I became even more deferential. I knelt before her once more, thanking her for her protection and vowing my undying loyalty. The princess entrusted me with great responsibility, assigning many tasks to me. She gave me control over nearly all the procurement and management of the princess's residence. With the experience I had gained managing the Chu household in my past life, Handling a princess's residence was not too difficult, but to avoid suspicion, I feigned incompetence, frequently asking for guidance. And then she assigned Samuel to work alongside me. I had just learned of this, and hadn't had a chance to refuse when Lady Isolde came chasing after him. She no longer had the arrogant confidence of a new bride. Her eyes were sunken and dark, and she had lost a significant amount of weight. She looked anxious and distracted. When she saw me, she didn't mock me as before, but asked flatly, "Where is Samuel? I need to see him." There was no affection in her voice when she mentioned his name. It was as if the high walls of the Chu Manor had devoured her, causing her to waste away. I estimated the time in my past life. It was around now that my sister-in-law had used Kale to frame me. Would Lady Isolde, being of noble birth and the supposed white moonlight of the Chu family, face the same fate? Surely they wouldn't kill me so decisively otherwise. I wanted no part of it, so I had someone fetch the man I had just sent away on a pile of errands. Then I made an excuse and left. I thought I could avoid the trouble, but Samuel burst into the room and without even looking called my name intimately. "Evelyn, you've finally come to your senses. What is Kale compared to me, as long as you're willing to come back?" Only then did he see Lady Isolde. "What are you doing here? If I hadn't come, how would I know that you two were sneaking around behind my back?" She had cast aside all decorum, refusing to listen to reason. Determined to link me with Samuel, she shouted, wanting everyone to know. When the news reached me, my vision went dark. "Could you please not drag me into your marital drama? I admit my judgment in my past life was terrible, but I have turned over a new leaf." I had just arrived at the princess's residence and was already given managerial authority. Many were jealous. After today's scene, even more people would defy my orders. Lady Isolde was still making a scene, seemingly determined to bind me and Samuel together. I touched my married woman's hairstyle, sensing that her mood was off, her behavior strange. Unfortunately, I knew too little about her from my past life to guess her intentions. I could only say to Samuel, "I am a court lady with an official rank. If you continue this, I won't be the only one to be ridiculed." The princess was generous, after a slap. She would always offer a sweet date. A registered 6. Rank court lady was the sweet date she gave me. His own reputation at stake, Samuel finally stopped watching from the sidelines. He grabbed Lady Isolde and hissed, "What are you trying to do? Do you want to disgrace us all? Whatever it is, we can discuss it at home." But Lady Isolde refused to yield, continuing her tirade. The matter soon reached the princess's ears. When she came to watch the show, she brought Kale with her. It hadn't even been 10 days since his injury. His wounds hadn't fully healed. He limped over, becoming a laughingstock for many. A pang of pain shot through my heart, but he greeted me cheerfully. "Lass, you're already in charge here. You're amazing. I always said you were smart. Working at my butcher shop was a waste of your talents." In the first few days of our marriage, he had shyly called me his wife, but it felt too awkward, so he switched back. The shop is still empty, though. When we have time, we should go check on it. Maybe we can rent it out. I glanced at Samuel. "I'm afraid we'll need the permission of her ladyship and Sir Samuel. Otherwise, any tenant will just be harassed, and the business won't last." Kale was the type to be rough around the edges but sharp underneath. He brought up the unrelated matter to help me clear my name. I naturally played along, continuing the act. The incident that day was a big one. Anyone curious enough to inquire would find the truth and wash the filth from my name. But being dragged into this was still incredibly unpleasant. After that day, I had Kyle teach me martial arts, and Samuel, shamed by the incident, stayed away from the princess's residence for several days. But the princess was furious about this and sent me to check on him. Wasn't this just sending a lamb into the tiger's den? Fortunately, Kale was recovering well and volunteered to accompany me, and his request was not denied. Despite having nearly killed Kale, the princess showed no awkwardness when she saw him. Instead, she teased me with a smile. "You two are quite the loving couple, inseparable." I smiled shyly, blushing and unsure of what to say. Only when we were in the carriage, away from the residence, did my expression turn cold. The princess wanted to control me. She had left Kale to Prince Valerius, using his near-death experience to make me submit to her, to accept my fate. I didn't know if she had a hand in Kale's injuries, but it was a fact that she had used his life to make me yield. This princess's residence was, after all, no safe haven. Kyle placed his hand on mine. Lass, don't be sad. We're going to see them make fools of themselves. Why the long face? We represent the princess now. Even if we laugh in his face, he'll have to take it. Well said, though it had nothing to do with what was actually bothering me. But somehow my mood lifted, and I began to look forward to this trip down memory lane. The Chu Manor had imprisoned me for over 40 years in my past life. This was my first time visiting in this life. Having grown accustomed to the princess's residence, returning to the place that had consumed my life, I found it was nothing special. It lacked both grandeur and elegance. It was a poor imitation, much like Samuel himself, rotten on the inside. We arrived in the princess's carriage and were warmly received. But when we asked to see Samuel, their expressions turned awkward. The matron of the Chu family's face hardened. She said he was ill and could not see visitors. She wanted to dismiss me, but the princess would not be fobbed off with such a flimsy excuse. Then we will see Lady Isolde. It is the same. They claimed Lady Isolde was also ill, no matter what. They would not let us see them. As we left, Kale said with a dark face, "What's their problem? Are they deliberately making things difficult for us? Will the princess blame you when you go back?" He looked at me with concern. "How about I climb over the wall and take a look? As long as we can satisfy the princess, everything else will be fine." The word satisfy was a bit subtle. No need. You haven't fully recovered. I have a plan. We returned to the princess's residence. I reported the Chu family's attitude and added a few provocative remarks. They might have been brushing me off, but weren't they also slighting the princess? "Since Samuel is ill, take my token and fetch an imperial physician for him." With the princess's token, I entered the palace and requested a physician for the Chu family. Seeing the palace eunuch behind me, the Chu family's faces turned sour, but they no longer dared to block our way. And so, I finally saw Lady Isolde, with ligature marks on her neck, and Samuel, his expression dark and malevolent. What had happened here? The imperial physician checked their pulses and prescribed medicine, ignoring everything else. I asked Samuel why he hadn't come to the princess's residence, if he intended to betray her. He remained silent. Only as I was leaving with the physician did he speak, his voice hoarse. "Evelyn, I regret it. I truly regret it. Heaven gave me a second chance, but I failed to cherish it. I should have married you with all the honors to make up for my past regrets. But perhaps even he realized how despicable his actions had been, as he trailed off. Me name, Yingchun, meant welcoming spring. My parents' best wish for me, but Samuel found it too common, saying it sounded like one of his maids. After our marriage, he gave me a more scholarly name. After that, only the two of us knew my real name. He didn't regret his actions. He regretted that he hadn't gotten his way and wanted to continue exploiting me. My heart filled with contempt. I had no desire to deal with him. After leaving the Chu Manor, I asked the physician for his diagnosis. He said both were suffering from excessive liver fire and that her ladyship had external injuries. Nothing serious, but they had clearly had a major fight. I was a bit surprised. As much of a scoundrel as Samuel was in our past life, he had never hit me. Why would he raise a hand against the princess he had once placed on a pedestal? The physician enlightened me further. Also, her ladyship engaged in marital relations 3 days ago, while Sir Samuel has not, for half a month. I looked at him in shock. The physician smiled. His Majesty is also curious about this matter. Naturally, I must handle it properly. This was terrifying. You practitioners of traditional medicine, I went to the palace with the physician. We corroborated our stories before the emperor, entertaining him with the tale before taking our leave. Upon my return, I reported everything to the princess. The next day, the story was all over the capital. The princess, used to a comfortable life, was angered by someone daring to disrespect her and naturally sought retribution. But Samuel wouldn't resent the princess. He would resent me. The man who had been missing for days finally reappeared at the princess's residence. But he came to condemn me. In front of many people, he tried to grab my hand and drag me away to talk. But I threw him over my shoulder, sending him tumbling into the bushes. I had been training with Kale these past few days. While I wasn't a master, the strength I had built from hauling pork was more than enough to take down a weak scholar like him. As I dusted off my hands, Samuel glared at me with hatred. "How much must you hate me to spread such a story and make it public knowledge?" I looked at him as if he were an idiot, then crouched down and whispered, "I'm not interested in your affairs." In the end, he hated the wrong person and loved the wrong person. He was truly a failure. "If you want to know how much I hate you, then just wait and see." I smiled demurely, the same dignified smile he knew from our past life. He looked at me with a dazed expression of infatuation and regret, asking how I had fared after his death in our past life. I have no habit of reminiscing with my enemies. I simply turned and walked away. Someone from the palace came to deliver rare fruits from the South Seas to the princess. The princess picked out some sugar figurines made by a street vendor and had me deliver them to the emperor. I entered the palace once more, but this time I knelt before him and reported the crimes of the Chu family. "How do you know of these things?" "Because I hate the Chu family. I hate Samuel, hate from the past life, and hate in this one. If I had to be a dog, what did it matter who I served? Prince Valerius, the princess, or the current emperor? Naturally, I would follow whoever offered the most. The emperor was a fatuous ruler. In my past life, he favored eunuchs and was incompetent, eventually being forced to abdicate during a purge of the court. But such a man was also generous and enjoyed chaos. So I took the place of the favored eunuch from my past life, becoming the blade in his hand. And my first strike fell on the Chu family. A eunuch has no heirs and can only rely on the Son of Heaven. As a woman, a rootless wanderer, I was even easier to control and had no power to meddle in politics. These were my weaknesses, but after I pledged my loyalty to the emperor, they became my strengths. Their assets were seized, their family exterminated. I stood before Samuel, forced to his knees by the imperial guard. I raised the blade, brought it down, all in one smooth motion. As his head rolled to the ground, I said, "Now you know what I look like when I hate you. People you hate should die. Why bother with all the drama?" The blade reflected my face, half stained with blood. I looked at Lady Isolde. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed, but she still refused to submit. "I am a princess. Who dares to touch me? Where is my uncle, the emperor? I want to see him. He would never do this to us. It's you. This is all you're doing." She pointed at me and cursed. "You turned from love to hate. You wanted to force me to step aside you." I cut off her incoherent accusations, pressing the blade against her neck. "Your ladyship, Sir Samuel, is dead. What's the use of talking about love? If you loved him so dearly and wished to join him, I would be happy to oblige. I killed Samuel because he was also reborn. What I knew, he knew, and perhaps even more. After all, I was confined to the inner quarters in our past life, while he navigated the royal court. When there are two of a precious treasure, its value plummets tenfold, does it not? As for the rest, I dealt with those who had tormented me in my past life. The others were handled according to protocol. I checked the Chu family roster to ensure no one escaped. When everything was done, I sat on my horse, wiping the blade with a handkerchief. It was then that Kale found me. He stood in the crowd, his eyes filled with concern, pushing his way forward as if to reach my side. I shook my head, and he stopped. But the expression on his face grew even more complex. I felt like I couldn't understand him anymore. But then, he had never understood me. I rode past him. The crowd parted for me, leaving only him standing in place. I dropped the handkerchief, and he caught it. It carried no fragrance, only the lingering scent of blood. The Emperor was furious about my summary execution of Samuel. As soon as I returned to the palace, he threw an inkstone at me. Blood dripped from my forehead into my eye, blurring my vision, but I remained kneeling, motionless. Your Majesty, I hate Samuel. My reason remained the same. The Emperor docked my salary for 6 months and made me remove the official robes he had bestowed upon me, leaving me in my undergarments to walk out. If I were an ordinary woman, or even the matriarch of the Chu family from my past life, I would have been expected to take my own life in shame. It was indeed a cruel punishment. Luckily, I didn't care. I knew that taking shortcuts came with a price, and the fact that the Emperor only docked my salary for 6 months was a sign that he still had use for me. But when I appeared before Kale in just my undergarments, he was horrified. He quickly draped his own clothes over me. What happened, did you? He stopped short. He probably wanted to ask if I had been assaulted, then realized he had no power to avenge me. I wrapped my arms around him and stood on my toes to kiss him. We hadn't been this intimate since our wedding night. He stepped back uncomfortably, causing me to stumble. I used the momentum to have him guide me into a room. Once the door was closed, we finally had a chance to talk. Lass, what on earth have you been doing, the Chu family? I'll explain later. For now, just play along. I kissed him again, but he hesitated. It looked as if I were forcing myself on him. But today, even if I had to force it, I pulled down the bed curtains, hiding us from view, and began to untie his sash. Kale was timid, asking if the wound on my forehead hurt. He suppressed his body's natural reactions. I rubbed my face against his, asking if he found me too dirty, if that was why he was acting this way. Kale panicked, fumbling for an explanation. I knew seduction was useless, so I bit his ear and whispered, "Hurry up, or neither of us will live to see tomorrow." I knew Kale hadn't fully recovered, and I myself was exhausted, my mind hazy and the wound on my forehead untreated. But the Emperor's spies were still hidden in the shadows. I had to put on another show for them. As I whimpered, I also spoke with exhilaration. Samuel is dead. I killed him with my own hands. I'm so happy. Kale's movements stopped. I worried my words had scared him limp. But instead, he seemed more excited. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination, but Kale became more vigorous, and the spies who had been watching me finally left. I sighed in relief and tried to push him away, but he wouldn't let go, instead becoming even more energetic. He tormented me until dawn, finally satisfied. He looked completely refreshed. I was the pitiful one. I had so much to tell him, but now I had no energy left. I shot him a glare and fell into a deep sleep, clutching his hand tightly. Stay here with me. Don't go anywhere. When I wake up, we'll talk. We were supposed to return to the princess's residence, but after yesterday's events, my ties with her were completely severed. The road ahead, every path was difficult. I was just trying to find one that was easier to walk, one where I wouldn't be bullied and exploited again. When I woke up, I told him about the fate of the Chu family and my allegiance to the Emperor. He asked about my wound, about why I had returned in such a state. It was the Emperor's test. He needed leverage over me, and after seeing my reckless nature, he would be willing to use this blade for the long term. But I had no intention of telling Kale about these dark, complex matters. I just gave him a vague answer. I was careless. After all, I was killing for the Emperor. Just being alive is a blessing. Kale frowned and said he wanted to be the Emperor's blade alongside me. You're too small. What if you get targeted and injured again? This kind of work is better suited for me. I have strength. I can chop off heads more efficiently than you. I've killed so many pigs, after all. I didn't think those two things were comparable. No, you're not suitable. I have other plans for you. I got out of bed, found some paper, and in small characters, wrote down all the intelligence I knew about future wars. I gave it all to him. These are things that might happen. I will find a chance to recommend you to the Emperor. Start from the middle ranks, seize the right opportunities, and you can climb up easily. If we were talking about power, military power was the most important. Instead of being a dog in the capital, it was better to fight on the battlefield. With Kale's skills, as long as he wasn't a common soldier, he wouldn't die easily. This was the path I had devised for him after days of thought. Since you have ambition, then go for it. Being their dog will lead to no good end. It is easy to be a dog, but hard to be a man. There was no future for us in this capital. Kale had seen this truth as well. He didn't reject my idea outright, but carefully read what I had written. He asked me, "How do you know these things?" It was a question, but his tone was certain, as if he already suspected the answer. I told him about my rebirth, about my past life's entanglements with Samuel. He held me and patted my back. "Don't be afraid, it's all in the past. He's dead. Our lives will only get better from now on. We won't be humiliated like that again." He didn't ask about his own fate in the past life, but I think he knew. My emotional outburst on the day he was carried back to the princess's residence was too intense. He didn't bring it up because he didn't want to hear it. Kale agreed to seek military glory on the battlefield, but he still needed an opportunity. Until then, our lives were not easy. The princess, Prince Valerius. I told Kale to stay away from me, not to plead for me, not to bow his head for my sake, no matter what. Then came a long period of suffering. The princess's gaze towards me shifted from initial hatred to something akin to emotion. "I thought you had chosen a good man to marry, but he turns out to be a coward. He was willing to die for you before, but now he won't even beg for your mercy. Perhaps a near-death experience made him cherish his life more." Her long fingernail guard scratched a red line on my face. She asked if I regretted my wrong move of siding with the Emperor. "If you had just obediently stayed by my side and worked for me, what couldn't you have obtained? Why suffer like this?" I had never regretted my choice. The princess spoke beautifully, but how could she have possibly allowed me to annihilate the entire Chu family? After all, anything I could do, Samuel could do too, and because of his status and gender, he could do it better. If I didn't kill him, how could I stand out? How could I make them value me enough to place me on a pedestal? But I still wore a look of sorrow and confessed my regret to the princess. The more she heard, the better her mood became. Finally, she pulled me up and patted my hand. "It's not too late to turn back from the wrong path, but that husband of yours is unreliable. Why don't I help you kill him and find you someone better?" I neither agreed nor refused, saying I needed to think about it. The Emperor could no longer wait and summoned me to the palace again. "You and Serafina seem to be on good terms." I knelt on the floor and said quietly, "I wouldn't dare claim so." "Raise your head." He waited for me to meet his gaze, then asked, "You don't hold a grudge against me for that little punishment last time, do you?" I dared not show my true feelings. "This humble servant has no complaints. I only feared your majesty's displeasure, so I returned to the princess's residence, hoping to find a means to survive." The Emperor laughed twice and had the imperial physician check my pulse. The physician was the same one I had met at the Chu Manor. As I extended my hand, I awkwardly curled my fingers. The physician saw the ligature marks on my wrist, injuries from my time at the princess's residence. He reported to the Emperor that I had many external injuries and my constitution was weak, requiring much care. The Emperor sighed on the surface and used it as an excuse to keep me in the palace. "Serafina is good, but she is prone to fits of temper. From now on, you will continue to work for me. For now, stay in the palace and recuperate." I first thanked him for his immense grace, then brought up Kale. "The princess wants to take his life. I beg your majesty to save him." The emperor's expression stiffened for a moment. I knew this was the most dangerous time for Kale. The princess wanted him dead, and the emperor didn't want him alive either. If I was to be a blade, I should be one without attachments, just as I had begged the princess for the life. Saving medicine, I now kowtowed until my head was bleeding, pleading with the emperor to spare Kale. I spoke of how much I loved him, of my willingness to sacrifice everything for him. Then let me see how far you are willing to go for him. I recall Prince Valerius gave him 50 strokes with the rod not long ago, nearly beating him to death. He wanted me to incriminate Prince Valerius. Coincidentally, I had no desire for Prince Valerius to have a good end either. I accepted the order and once again found myself mingling with the Imperial Guard. The extermination of the Chu family had been too sudden. Many eyes were on me, seeing me enter the judicial office again. Memorials denouncing me flew like snowflakes into the palace. The emperor couldn't be bothered with such trivial matters, and had me confront them in court. They accused me of a woman overstepping her bounds, of annihilating the Chu family for my own selfish desires. Their most powerful witness was Lady Isolde, who had just been released from prison a few days ago. She had only been married to Samuel for a short time and was not involved in the family's affairs. Even if they tried to frame her, nothing would stick. As she was of royal blood, once she was cleared of any wrongdoing, she was made to sign a divorce decree severing all ties with the Chu family and was released. She should have completely distanced herself from the Chu family. But now she stood in court for Samuel, pointing out my faults. She slandered me, claiming that love had turned to hate, and I had brutally murdered him. It was the same old story. It seemed they could only attack me through matters of love and honor. Why did they think I would be trapped by such things? I was a refugee who had come to the capital. I had endured every hardship imaginable. If I were to kill myself out of shame over such rumors to prove my innocence, that would be the truly strange thing. I let them attack me, even as they spread rumors that I had sold myself into a brothel and serviced Samuel. When they saw I had no reaction and had exhausted all their new slanders, I finally stepped forward, greeted the emperor, and then calmly laid out the evidence of the Chu family's crimes. Forcing commoners to sell their land and themselves, misappropriating military funds and delaying battles. The evidence was concrete, and I presented it all. In my past life, after taking over the Chu family, I learned just how big a mess it was. They lived lavishly on ill-gotten gains, which became their biggest vulnerability. I spent a great deal of effort and my own money to clean up their name. In the process, I was so stressed that I nearly lost my first child. The child was born weak, and only with the best medicine and my constant care did I manage to raise him. Yet, when he had me drowned in a pig cage, he said he regretted being born from my womb, that a woman like Lady Isolde should have been his mother. The memories of my past life still weighed on my heart, but they were the fuel for my climb. This servant acts on behalf of your majesty. The Chu family was disloyal, unfilial, and cruel, and were punished for their great crimes. Since you gentlemen have investigated my private life so thoroughly, surely you are not unaware of the Chu family's crimes. Or perhaps, by framing me, you wish to express your dissatisfaction with His Majesty. I walked up to Lady Isolde, tilted her chin up, and said, I killed him because he was guilty and deserved to die. Please do not misunderstand, your ladyship, and stop telling such laughable jokes. The fact that you were released unharmed is proof of my impartiality, is it not, your ladyship? Just you watch. My hatred for you is no less than my hatred for Samuel. Lady Isolde's eyes blazed, and she spat. At me. It wasn't blood. The smell of vomit was foul. I gagged in response. She fainted after vomiting, and the argument came to an abrupt end. Everyone seized the opportunity to change the subject, feigning concern for her and glossing over what had just been said. After all, they couldn't win an argument against me, and continuing would only lead to them being implicated. The emperor summoned the imperial physician for Lady Isolde, who announced that she was pregnant. Everyone assumed it was Samuel's posthumous child. But I remembered what the physician had secretly told me after examining her last time. Was this child really of Chu family blood? As I pondered what this child would mean for the situation, the Emperor had the physician examine me as well. The wound on my forehead hadn't fully healed, and all the weight I had gained with Kale was gone. I thought the Emperor was showing his concern in public because he intended to use me again. But the physician announced another happy news. I was pregnant. I almost wanted to ask him if he was serious. 2 pregnant women in a row, wasn't that a bit much? Kale and I had been apart more than we were together, and we had only been intimate twice. For the physician to detect it, it must have happened on our wedding night. I touched my belly. This child had come at a very inconvenient time. The Emperor, sympathizing with Lady Isolde's ordeal, kept her in the palace and then asked me what I intended to do with my child. Seeing the Emperor's leisurely, knowing gaze, I suddenly understood. He had deliberately let everyone know. The physician had been treating me daily. How could he have only discovered my pregnancy today? This servant does not know. I deliberately showed weakness, begging the Emperor to guide me. He gave me 2 choices. Either I abort the child and have Kale killed, then stay by his side as his blade, or I give birth to the child. As for Kale, he had heard of his bravery and could send him to the battlefield for training. If he succeeded, he would be another fine blade. If he failed, it wouldn't affect the Emperor's use of me. Given the current situation, the Emperor was indeed short of capable men, especially in the military, which he could barely command. So for someone he disliked but didn't want to kill, sending them to the army was a good option. I had previously promised to get Kyle into the army with this very plan in mind. Now that the Emperor had brought it up himself, I pretended to ponder for a long time before choosing the second option. The Emperor's expression remained indifferent. Then send him over directly. You are newly pregnant and shouldn't overexert yourself. There is no need for a farewell. He said my body was weak and I shouldn't bother saying goodbye to Kale. But he still entrusted me with the task of dealing with Prince Valerius. Lady Isolde and I were pregnant around the same time. While she was in the palace drinking nourishing soups, I was gathering evidence of Prince Valerius's crimes. When her belly started to show, I stormed Prince Valerius's residence and threw him into the imperial prison. While she suffered from pregnancy sickness and tormented the palace staff, I was in the prison interrogating Prince Valerius, torturing a confession out of him. We would often pass each other in a hurry as I rushed off to my duties. Tonight, Lady Isolde couldn't sleep because of the discomfort. Supported by her maids, she wandered near the imperial infirmary. We met by chance, with a rare moment to talk. She blocked my path, her belly prominent. Let's talk. I had just crushed 7 of Prince Valerius's fingers and broken 3 of his ribs. I still carried the foul, bloody stench of the prison, and I was so exhausted I could barely keep my eyes open. I don't think we have anything to talk about. Please, your ladyship, excuse me. I tried to walk past her, but she called out, Samuel loved you so much. Didn't you feel a shred of guilt when you killed him? More of this nonsensical drivel. I quickened my pace, but she added, before he died. Samuel gave me a box inside were things he claimed would happen in the future. I had them checked one by one, and they all came true. I stopped and looked at her maids, a murderous intent brewing within me. But this was the imperial palace, and given Lady Isolde's style, the Emperor probably already knew. I dismissed the thought of silencing her and asked what she wanted to talk about. She sent her maids away and extended a hand, her voice soft. Support me. After a few days as an official, have you forgotten how to serve people? I had never served anyone, and I couldn't be bothered with her taunts now. I grabbed her arm, pulled her into an empty room, and asked coldly, can we talk now? If you're going to prattle on about love again, I'm leaving. I was truly exhausted. She, on the other hand, slept all day and caused trouble all night. I hadn't had a good night's sleep in over 6 months. Lady Isolde didn't see me as an equal and dismissed my threat. She was just as she had been when she stormed my wedding trying to abduct me for Samuel. She began to recount her story with Samuel, painting me as the villain who destroyed their beautiful love. She said everything was perfect. Samuel the hero, she falling for him at first sight. But then, he insisted on going to the brothel to find you. He said you two had a connection, and he couldn't bear to see you fall into depravity. But I wasn't in the brothel, so he came up empty. Only after that did he propose to her. Then he went on about how pitiful and weak you were, how you couldn't survive on your own. He insisted on taking you as a concubine to protect you in his manor. He considered you in everything, wronging me for your sake, only to get. She was about to cry about her beautiful love story, but I felt like I had eaten something rotten. Your ladyship, pitiful, weak, unable to live without a man. Do you think those words suit me? Never mind my current role as the Emperor's blade, which had made me sharp and ruthless, even before. I was never that kind of person. All right, if you insist on talking about this, let me speak first. Samuel coveted your status and beauty, but couldn't let go of me. He wanted both and ended up with nothing. That is the great love you speak of. In our past life, he coveted Lady Isolde's noble birth and beauty. In this life, after easily obtaining her, he began to miss how I managed his household, how I paved his way to success. He missed my gentle nature, my care for him. His life had too much room for error. Even when he was indecisive, wanting everything, there were people who would understand and speak up for him. Even after his death, countless people beautified his memory. In court that day, I had presented all the evidence of the Chu family's crimes, yet they still claimed I acted out of spurned love, slandering me while trying to portray Samuel as a tragic lover. Your ladyship, in our past life, Samuel didn't save you. You remained a carefree, happy princess. At least you never suffered as you have now. The Lady Isolde of our past life was the brightest star in the capital. She was free, spirited, and passionate, which was why she became the cinnabar mole on Samuel's heart. Though she died young, her life was much better than this one. My words of my own innocence were useless, but mentioning her past self seemed to move her. She stopped talking about Samuel and spoke of the plans he had left behind. I have already presented everything to the Emperor. You are useless to him now. She smiled, then deliberately threw herself towards me. I dodged agilely, and she fell to the floor. Blood pooled beneath her. She clutched her stomach and cried out, Why did you harm my child? Was she trying to frame me with her own life? I was speechless. If she had tried this right after I killed Samuel, it might have worked. But so much time had passed, and the situation had changed so much. Times were different. She was no longer a threat to me. The imperial physician rushed to treat Lady Isolde. The baby was born prematurely after a whole night of labor. I glanced at the time. It was the beginning of autumn, the same day my eldest son was born in my past life. A premature birth at the same time. Lady Isolde had never had children in our past life. This made me suspect that the child in her womb was the same ungrateful wretch I had raised, the one who had personally ordered my death. I slept for 2 hours, then went to the Emperor to plead guilty. The Emperor was not angry about Lady Isolde's injury and premature birth. Instead, he asked me, You came to see me just for this. Lady Isolde did mention something else yesterday, but I thought it was just nonsense, not worth mentioning to your majesty. Nonsense or the truth? Are you afraid to tell me, hoping I won't pursue the matter? It is nonsense, of course. If someone truly knew the future, they would be a god descended from heaven. How could they die so easily at my hand? The Emperor was silent for a moment, then had a eunuch bring Samuel's last possessions. The eunuch handed them to me, and the Emperor said, Take a good look. These things make me wonder what your true intentions were when you insisted on killing Samuel. His tone was harsh, but unlike last time when he threw the inkstone, he didn't resort to violence. For me, this was an improvement. I was indeed curious about what he had written. As I read through them, I found that besides important future events, every letter ended with, My dearest wife, I regret everything. He not only wrote about his own future, but also detailed my role in it. No wonder he was so regretful. so willing to alienate Lady Isolde to pursue me. He had realized how important I was to him, how indispensable I was in his life. How pathetic. After reading everything, I chuckled. I put the papers down, kowtowed to the Emperor, and congratulated him. "Congratulations, Your Majesty," he asked, intrigued. "For what?" I said cheerfully. "For obtaining me, of course. It is like adding wings to a tiger. I never knew I was so capable. But if it allows me to serve Your Majesty better, then it is my fortune and Your Majesty's joy." The Emperor burst out laughing, saying I had a point. He then asked about Prince Valerius. I presented the confession I had extracted from him the night before. He nodded in satisfaction, then said with a sigh, "You know, when I first sent you to deal with Prince Valerius, I wanted you to use a honey trap. With your intelligence, you must have known he was interested in you." I felt a wave of disgust but smiled and said, "Prince Valerius does not lack for beautiful women. As long as the job is done, the method is unimportant." True. Isolde's child has been born. Yours should be due soon. Rest well. We will talk again after the child is born. The final blow was the most critical. If the Emperor showed mercy and spared Prince Valerius out of brotherly affection, he would surely seek revenge on me once he recovered. But for now, I could only agree. Prince Valerius was already broken. He would be of no more use to the Emperor. When the Emperor's men went to the prison to take custody of Prince Valerius, they found him lying on the floor like a boneless, broken dog. The jade string he had once given me was stuffed in his mouth. He had swallowed most of it, rendering him unable to speak. When they pulled it out, they discovered his throat had already been ruined. The man gasped and said of me, "That woman is ruthless." Later he would say, "That person is ruthless." And even later, he wouldn't even dare to speak of me behind my back. But that was all in the distant future. For now, I still had many challenges to face. Just giving birth would nearly cost me my life. Similar to my past life, where I toiled for the Chu family, I now toiled for my own future, and in both cases, I had not taken proper care of myself during my pregnancy. Though we were pregnant around the same time, my belly was much smaller than Lady Isolde's. I thought I would have to endure the same pain as my past life, but the birth was surprisingly quick. A small, red, wrinkled monkey, so ugly. A girl, though born full term, she only weighed 4 pounds. I played with her and asked the Emperor what he planned for her. The imperial physician checked my pulse and prescribed restorative herbs, congratulating me. "His Majesty, considerate of your situation as a widow and orphan in the capital, has arranged for her to be a study companion to the princess. All her caretakers have been arranged. You are about to ascend to great heights." It seemed Kale was doing well on the border. Otherwise, the Emperor wouldn't place such importance on our child. Though I hadn't received any news from Kale in 10 months. The Emperor's attitude towards my pregnancy was enough to confirm his safety. But I pitied this child. I didn't know if she would grow up safely, or if she would be corrupted by the imperial palace. I played with her, my expression calm as I thanked the Emperor for his grace, explaining that I was too weak to perform the proper rituals, and asking the physician to convey my gratitude. A short while later, the Emperor sent someone to ask if I was dissatisfied with his arrangements. I shook my head and said, "We have been apart for 10 months. The feelings have faded. I am just a little lost." The Emperor had been looking for an excuse to recall Kale. Now he granted me this special favor and summoned him from the battlefield. We were reunited in the crisp autumn wind the month. A half journey was enough time for me to complete my postpartum confinement, and for the Emperor to transfer all my duties to others. On the eve of Kale's return, the Emperor gave me a new task. "You and General Kale are husband and wife. You should catch up properly." He wanted me to win him over. Let the child see him more. A father and daughter need to spend time together to bond. It is a pity she is a girl. This is a good opportunity to have a second child. No. I was actually thankful she was a girl. A son would have brought many more troubles. After Kale had his audience with the Emperor, A eunuch led him to my quarters. I was playing with our daughter, tossing her gently in the air. When he saw me with a baby, his face looked as if the sky had fallen. Our eyes met, and I said casually, "You're back." He remained frozen at the door, fidgeting for a long time before finally entering at my repeated urging. "Lass, have you been well? You look good. Your cheeks are rosy." He greeted me with practiced awkwardness. Both his words and his movements felt unnatural. "You should have someone to care for you. Who is the child's father? Is he reliable? If you're being bullied, you have to tell me." I said I would treat you as a sister, and I will protect you. Let me tell you, I've made something of myself. They call me a great general now. I never thought I'd be so successful. It's all thanks to you. I finally understood his awkwardness. He thought that after he left, I had found someone else. I rolled my eyes. "What do you take me for? I've been so busy in the capital I've nearly worked myself to death. And you think I've been messing around with other men? You are an important person now. They all say you are close to the Emperor. A coarse man like me is not worthy of you." He was still reserved, as if we were back to how we were when we first separated. He was a great general now, yet still so insecure. "Then I'll find a new father for my daughter tomorrow. Do you have any candidates in mind?" I always maintained a stern face in front of others, but to do so with him would be too tiring. Already in a bad mood and now being misunderstood by him, I retorted with sarcasm. Kyle was stunned for a long moment, then asked incredulously, "Are you saying this child is mine?" He stammered, reaching out a hand as if to touch a fragile bubble, and gently poked our daughter's cheek. "What's her name?" "She doesn't have one. I was waiting for you to come back and name her. But now that you're back, you don't even want to acknowledge her." Huh, more sarcasm from me. He was beyond embarrassed, wringing his hands and pacing around me. Lass, this is my fault. I'm sorry, please don't ignore me. What should we name our daughter? I'm not educated, you should name her. Any name you choose will be beautiful." I poked him in the chest. He took a large step back in response. Then he continued calling me Lass. It was giving me a headache. I stopped him. "I gave birth to her. If you don't even name her, what part will you have in her life? I know you won't be back for long. You can take care of her for the next few days. It will be a good chance for you to bond." I wanted them to bond. Although my goals differed from the Emperor's, we were aligned on the matter of securing Kale's loyalty. Kale was a good man. He would protect me and love the daughter he had just met. He would feel for the hardships I had endured in the capital and want to give me a better life. He left all the Emperor's rewards for me, spoke of the beauty of the desert, of his own achievements. He didn't speak of his suffering, but told me that if he died one day, I should find a better man and not mourn for him, not suffer for his sake. He told me not to beg for him again. Me pleased to the princess and the Emperor, though calculated, had left a deep scar on him during a moment of intimacy. Prince Valerius died in the imperial prison. The Emperor likely didn't want him to die, and had used the best medicine to keep him alive. But my methods had been too brutal, and Prince Valerius did not survive. After his death, the Emperor could only have me continue my unfinished business: confiscation of property and extermination of the clan. This time, the person leading the operation with me was Kale. The Emperor wanted Kale to see my true face, but I was avenging him. I didn't see how this would drive a wedge between us. Perhaps for people of their high station, the process, the methods, the distinction between right and wrong were all very important. Seeing me kill. Kale was supposed to think I was unwomanly, to distance himself from me, to despise me. But for people like us, whose lives were as insignificant as weeds, it didn't matter if a cat was black or white, as long as it caught mice. Kale was quite at ease. He even said to me, "Lass, this work of yours is exciting. If I had known, I would have joined in sooner." We chatted casually, but we found many abused women in Prince Valerius's residence. If I hadn't climbed up on the bones of others, I might have become one of them. Prince Valerius had fallen for me at first sight. But he had fallen for many women. In my past life, after his downfall, many of the abused women, barely alive, begged the soldiers who stormed his residence, not for rescue, but for death, for release. That was why I was so shocked when I learned Kale had joined him, why I was so desperate to get him out, why I had been so dismissive of the prince. After killing Prince Valerius, I truly became a useful blade in the Emperor's hand. The evidence against the Chu family was real, but the evidence against Prince Valerius was fabricated by me. He was a prince, no matter his crimes. They did not warrant the extermination of his clan. It was I who, following the Emperor's wishes, tortured a confession out of him, leading to his downfall. With my crimes in his hand, the Emperor could use me without worry. But he was not pleased with my progress with Kale. Unfortunately, Kale was like a stubborn copper pea, truly without weakness. The Emperor could only send him back to the border to fight and continue his life as a fatuous ruler. 3 or 5 years passed in a flash, bringing us to the time of his death in my past life. Once again, the princess purged the court, installed the youngest prince on the throne, and ruled from behind the scenes. My role in this was to help her poison the Emperor, so he could have a natural death and not stand in her way. The intelligence Samuel had left behind about the future did not mention the princess's rise to power. After all, he had planned to align with her. His supposed final words were just a contingency plan for himself. My blade had fallen too quickly, disrupting his plans. With the princess in power, she was in desperate need of people. I went from being a blade to her most capable female official. Some brought up my past betrayal of her, how I had falsely accused so many innocent officials when I was the Emperor's dog. The princess cut them off, saying it was nonsense, that I was her most trusted right-hand woman. After the person left, I emerged from behind the screen. The princess said to me, "General Kale's contribution to this purge was immense. I have nothing left to reward him with. How about a marriage? What do you think?" "Isn't Kale my husband? When I wanted to kill him back then, you didn't stop me, did you?" "Evelyn, with gain comes loss. If you and Kale remain husband and wife, how can I rest easy?" I sighed. In my past life, I was at least surrounded by my children, living a bustling life in the Chu family, revered by all. Now, though, I stood at the pinnacle, able to contend with the princess. I had no one I could trust. This cold, lonely power was actually quite comfortable. I smiled, my eyes crinkling. "As you wish, that is something Kale can decide for himself. You need not discuss it with me." She did not ask Kale privately, but announced his betrothal in open court. The bride-to-be was Lady Isolde, who had been living in seclusion for years. The royal family was small, and Kale was no longer young. The only suitable royal woman was Lady Isolde. Kale was completely taken aback. He looked at me, but I met his gaze with cold indifference. He looked aggrieved and said directly, "I have a wife. Why should I marry someone else? I promised her I would only have her in this life, not even a concubine. I request that you retract the order." Aunts Lady Isolde had tried to force me to be Samuel's concubine. Now Kale was saying that even if Lady Isolde were to be his concubine, he wouldn't have her. I didn't believe he had forgotten the humiliation of that day. This two-faced man was definitely saying this in front of everyone to shame her. He really holds a grudge. Kale and I could counterbalance her power, and we understood the suffering of the common people. Why would we cripple ourselves? But I was a little surprised that Kale stood so firmly by my side. With the princess in power, I no longer had to be a blade, but in the process of being one, I had gathered much power in my own hands. And Kale, who once had ambition, had now settled down. He spent his days with our daughter, clinging to me and saying he wanted to make up for the years we had lost. Most of the time, I indulged him and trusted him. After all, the initial reason I sought him out was that he was easy to control. Even now, I still think so. Kale, I hold his greatest vulnerability. The information about the future I gave him was his ladder to success, but also his Achilles heel. His initial victories were unnaturally smooth. If I wanted to, I could fabricate a crime at any time and destroy him with a single blow. But he was truly good to me. So good that I was willing to pretend to be in love for a lifetime. So good that I didn't have to say the threatening words and break his heart. After being publicly humiliated, Lady Isolde came to question me again. But times had changed. I had her thrown out. A small child had followed her. He slipped past the others, hugged my leg, and called out in a clear voice, "Mama."